Hi everyone, Riger here from Riger Tech. Welcome to the next video in the laptop desktop computer buyer's guide. In the previous episode, I looked at all of the different hardware components inside a laptop or a desktop computer, and then knowing that information, it'll help you to decide what kind of laptop or desktop computer you best want. So if you haven't seen the first video, or you don't, so if you don't know what all the different components of a laptop or a desktop computer are, then go watch the first episode and then come back. If you do know about it, then that's fine, obviously. So I'm going to use the PB Technologies website only because they have a nice large selection of laptops that we can look at, and it's easy to see all the different specifications. Just to let you know, they're not paying me or anything like that to use their website in this particular video. I'm not associated with PB Technology at all. I'm just a very satisfied customer of theirs, and I like their website. So that's why I'm using it, but they are not paying me to promote them in this particular video. You don't have to buy anything from them if you don't want to. That's perfectly fine. You can look out for deals and get a good deal wherever you can find it. All right, so probably the cheapest computers you can get are called Chromebooks. So before you go off looking for a laptop or desktop computer, the first thing you want to do is decide on what your budget is. All right, so decide on how much money you want to spend and don't go over it. Just try and get the best laptop or desktop computer that you can for that particular amount of money that you want to spend. Also, you want to decide what are your uses going to be for this. Are you going to be primarily just browsing the web, watching movies on Netflix, checking your email online, or are you going to be doing gaming, or are you going to be using a lot of Microsoft Office applications, doing lots of photo editing or video editing? Are you doing design work, creating print designs and things like that? So it really, are you doing a lot of coding, development kind of stuff? So it kind of depends what you're going to use your laptop or desktop computer for as to what kind of things you want to get. Now, if you want to get a laptop for someone entering, one of your kids entering in intermediate or high school, and they're just going to do basic things like creating reports and doing graphs and using Google Docs and the Google applications, that kind of stuff, using the internet, using the school's websites, that kind of stuff, then probably Chromebooks are good for that. If you're an adult person buying something for yourself, and again, you're just primarily doing things on the internet, so you do your accounts on the internet, using Google applications, playing light games, using like Android games that you use on your Google phone, that kind of stuff, then Chromebook is a really good fit for that. So if we go to the Chromebook section, so Chromebooks generally tend to be, I'll put this at sorted by lowest price, tend to be the cheapest that are on offer, generally because their CPUs aren't hugely fast, they don't have huge amounts of RAM, and they don't have huge amounts of storage space inside it for storing things, because the whole point of a Chromebook is it runs a customized operating system called Chrome OS, where it has enough programs on the computer to get it going, but then you're doing everything through the internet. So you use your Google app through the internet, you save all your documents to your Google Drive, that kind of stuff, or your OneDrive if you're doing Microsoft storage system online, then that's where you're storing most of your information and so on. So it's really good for students, because they'll connect to the internet through their school computers and at home and so on, and so you don't need a huge amount of storage space. You can still run programs even if you're not connected to the internet, but if you're doing things that require an internet connection as you're working on something, then of course you will need an internet connection then. All right, so if we look at some of these Chromebooks here, you see that at the beginning it's got a list of some of the specifications. So things like the size of the screen, this is an 11.6 inch high definition screen. So it's got HD, but it's not true high definition, as we talked about in the first video. So this is 1366 by 768. So on an 11-inch screen, that will look pretty good. So you don't need to worry too much about that. We can see the SSD capacity is 32 gigabytes, so there's 32 gigabytes of storage. So it's not huge, But then remember, you're using a Chromebook and most of your documents are going to be stored on Google Drive anyway on the internet. So you don't need a huge amount of storing. But in saying that, it will have a USB port, and you can just plug in a USB drive if you do want to store things locally on your own USB drive. And then the memory size is 4 gigabytes, so that's the amount of RAM it has, which is pretty reasonable for a Chromebook. You don't need huge amounts of RAM for a Chromebook because it does a lot of stuff on the internet, which does it for you. So you see that this one has, the CPU is called a Celeron N4020. The next one is also, where is it? So this is a different one. This is an AMD 3015CE CPU. There's another N4020 CPU. This is an AMD A49120C CPU. So you might be wondering, well, how do I know which CPU is faster than other CPUs? Because generally you want to get a CPU which is comparably faster than other CPUs. Now normally if the price goes up, that typically means that the computer should be faster, but it doesn't always mean that, because the price could go up because of other features which are part of that. So a bigger screen size or more RAM or something like that will take the price up. So we want to compare these CPUs. So the best thing you do is we open a new tab and go to Google, and if you type in CPU benchmark, and then it should come up with cpubenchmark.net. So this is a website that will benchmark and give us scores for CPUs based on their tests. So we go to there, and for a Chromebook it's a very low-end CPU, so we want to go to the low-end CPU chart. So we click on that, that takes us into here, and then it has a list of all the different CPUs and what the score is based on the test that they run these CPUs through. So we just want to find these, right? So if we go back to our website here, if we click on this, and then we can select N402 and just go Control-C to copy that. Then if we go to the other tab, and if you go Control-F to find, and that will bring up your find box that you can type in things. You just go Control-V to paste in that particular thing. So there is no N4020 on that particular one. So let's try a different CPU chart. Let's go for low to mid range. Okay, let's go find. There we go. So it comes up here. So this is an Intel Celeron. If we click on that, does that give us any extra information about it? So there we go. It tells you how many cores it has and how many threads it can handle per core. So remember I talked about that in the previous video. So it's got 2 cores and 2 threads for each core. So there we go. So that tells you how you can find out how many cores and threads a CPU has. If we go back to the previous page, let's just go find again so we can find it. Alright, so we want to keep a note of that particular score. So let's bring up Notepad. And its score was 1590. So that way, just keep a track of that so that when you look at another CPU, you can compare it back to this one to see how fast it actually was. Okay, let's have a look at a different CPU. So let's have a look at this one here. So we'll open that up in a tab, and let's grab that, go back into here, go find, paste, and we see this one is 1525. So let's add that into our thing here. So 1525. So there's not a huge difference between these two particular CPUs, right? So you know, a 65 score difference is nothing really. If it was a couple of hundred or 1,000 difference, then that's pretty huge. So really you could go for either one of these two particular chips here. Let's do one more. So let's do this one here, the AM49120. So let's grab that, 9120C. Go to here, go Control F, paste that in. Can't be found on this one. So we might need to go to a different chart. So let's go there. Let's try high to mid-range. Find. Oh, it's not found on that one either. Okay. Let's try the low-end CPU chart. There we go. We found it on that one. That is 815. So you can see that 815 is quite different from these other two up here, right? So generally, the speed can be different based on different configurations for the computer that you're buying, but it's still a really good point. So this is almost double the speed of this one here. So that's probably a good indication that either of these two CPUs is better than this particular one here. Okay, so that's how you can decide what particular laptops you might want for a Chrome OS. Alright, so generally 4 GB of memory is fine for a Chrome OS. 1366 by 768 is fine. A screen size of 11.6 inches is pretty good. You don't need to worry too much about the storage capacity. So this is 32 GB, this is 32 GB storage capacity. Generally that's what it will have for the lower end options, because remember, with the Chrome OS, you're doing everything in the cloud. You're doing everything through the internet and saving things to your Google Drive. But also remember, you can plug in a USB drive if you do want to store things locally. So that shouldn't be too much of a problem. So Chrome OS is really good for students in intermediate and high school, and for adults that just want to do things on the internet, like watching movies, doing basic things on the internet. Alright, now if you want to do anything more than that, like you want to get into video editing or image processing, or you want to run Microsoft Office on the computer rather than doing it through online, and you don't want to use Google Apps, then and also if you're going to university, probably Chromebook is not going to cut it anymore. You want to be able to do a range of different things if you want to get in. So if you have a high school student that's going into level 1, 2 and 3, that's going to be doing kind of coding stuff like website development, media creation, coding, then you want a reasonably good laptop for that. For coding, generally Windows is the way to go, because Macs don't have I generally don't have a lot of free coding software that you can use. There are some out there, but generally most software development people use the Windows operating system for code development. But if you're doing things like website creation, media creation, then Macs are also good for that as well. Right, so if we go to shop all laptops, sort that by lowest price, and generally for a decent laptop you're looking at around the $600–700 price range. So let's get to there. Alright, so here we're getting into some so these are still Chromebooks. Yeah, still not really useful ones. So let's go on one more page. Alright, so now we're starting to get some decent laptops appear. So 14-inch screens, decent CPUs, so AMD Ryzen 3. Remember, you can use the CPU benchmark site. So for normal laptops, you probably want to go to high to mid-range chart. So you'll find those particular CPUs on there. Alright, so you're looking for a decent amount of memory, a decent amount of RAM. So probably 8 GB is a good starting point for doing anything more than stuff on the internet that the Chromebooks do. So probably 8 GB is a good starting point. I would recommend screen sizes 14 inches and above if you're going to be doing anything like video editing, image editing, desktop publishing, using Microsoft Office, coding. Then the bigger the screen, the better. SSD capacity, so remember this is your storage space on the actual computer, but remember you can still plug in an external USB drive or an external hard drive to store extra stuff as well. 128 is probably be about the minimum you'd want to go. I wouldn't go for less than that, but if you can afford more storage space, so like 256 GB or 512 GB of storage space, then that is better. And for 14-inch screens, I definitely recommend a 1920 by 1080 screen resolution. Now you see that a lot of them have graphics or GPU model and they've put integrated graphics. So what that means is the graphics handling is done by the CPU itself. It has little graphics chiplets inside the CPU chip which handle the graphic stuff. Now that is perfectly fine for all the stuff I talked about: image editing, coding, doing very light gaming, right? Nothing too heavy, just very light gaming, and doing Microsoft Office productivity apps, that kind of stuff. For video editing, integrated graphics can be a little bit limiting because video editing is very taxing on your computer. So if you have a dedicated graphics card, an actual proper card that does all the graphics capabilities, which is separate from the actual CPU itself, then that's better for doing video editing. But then again, generally if you're doing video editing, you probably want to do that on a desktop computer anyway. One thing to watch out is for the operating system. If it's got Win 10S, then you need to watch out for that. What that means is it's got Windows 10. The S means it's the special version where you can only install apps from the Microsoft App Store. It won't let you install apps from any other vendor websites, like going to the not Microsoft, but if you go to like the Adobe website to download Adobe Creative Suite, it won't let you do that. You'd have to pay money to upgrade Windows 10S to the actual proper operating system. So just watch out for that. So generally I don't go for Windows 10S. You'd probably want the full version, well not full version, but the home version of Windows 10. Alright, so that's what you want to look out for. So as I said, you can go for bigger screen sizes. That does make the laptop a little bit heavier normally. So it depends on, what you want to do. So if you're a university student and you're lugging it around university, or if you're a school student lugging it around school, then you don't want to go too big because it's just very bulky. But if you're at home and you use your laptop mostly at home, then you can go for a bigger screen size as well. So you see that this one here has got Windows 10 Home. All right. Okay, so that's what you want to look for. So just basically look at what your budget is. Look at what the CPUs, compare the CPUs for the models that you're interested in, see which ones are better than the other ones. You can see that all these laptops have SSDs, none of them have an actual hard drive, so that's what you're looking for. Alright, so basically just peruse through the website, look at all the different things that you want to look for. Generally for a laptop, I normally think 1920 by 1080 is the sweet spot. You don't really need a higher resolution than that. If we start to look at some of the more expensive laptops, so let's just click ahead and get to some of the more expensive ones. So you can just do that here. Page, let's go 8. Right, so getting up to the 1500 area, and you can start to see you get a lot more things, but you still see, around 14 inches, 15 inches, 1920 by 1080. If you get to the really expensive ones, these will be your gaming laptops. So let's have a look. Let's see if we get to some. Let's go to page 21. Right, so you can see that some of these gaming laptops here, really powerful. So memory size 32 gigabytes of RAM. Screen size is 15.6 inches, getting up to 2K resolution. All right, and you can see that these now have a dedicated graphics card inside them. All right, and they also come with Windows 10 Pro rather than Windows 10 Home. So you don't really need to go for these ones unless you're really into gaming, and you need the portability of a gaming laptop. Otherwise, you don't really need to go that far. The Macintosh laptops normally kick in about 1300. So if we just go to brands and choose Apple and go apply filter, well, in fact they kick in about 2000 for a Mac laptop. All right, so you can see that this Mac laptop is 8 gigabytes of memory, 13.3 inches, has 2K resolution and 512 gigabyte SSD capacity. But if again, you really only want to go for a MacBook if you're doing things which involve video editing, video image processing, that kind of stuff, creative work. If you're just doing looking at movies on the internet, just doing Google app stuff, again, as I said, you're better off going for a Chromebook or just a lower end laptop instead. So you really need to go think carefully about what you want, what you're going to be using it for, what your budget is, and then try and buy the best laptop for that particular budget. All right, so I'm kind of giving you some ideas about how you can compare different models, what things to look out for, and then it's up to you to figure out what you want to buy. Right, so if you want to buy a desktop computer, then it's kind of the same thing as looking at what you want for a laptop computer, but there's just a couple of other things you want to look at. So if you go back to computers and tablets, and then we want to shop desktop PCs. So there's two things you can go for. You can go for a desktop PC, which is the box which connects to a monitor, which means you're going to have a monitor as well, which is an extra cost to your desktop PC. Or you could go for an all-in-one PC, which combines the computer and the screen in one package. So let's have a look at the all-in-one PCs first. All right, so let's just go view all-in-one. So these are all the Windows ones. All right, so you can see that, so basically all the computer components on the back of the screen. So again, you can have a look at the CPU of it. It should have the screen resolution. So does it have the screen size? So yeah, so you've got the screen size there, 23.8 inches. This one is 23.8 inches. So probably, yeah, anything up to 24 inches, then a 1920 by 1080 screen resolution is probably fine. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're buying anything over 24 inches, you really need to go up to 2K. Otherwise, the quality of 1920 by 1080 won't look as good on a bigger size screen. All right, so see if there's any other bigger size screens in here. No, I think they're all around that size. Anyway, so so you're looking for, how much RAM it has. So it should say here, so there's 16 gigabytes of RAM. There's a 256 gigabyte M.2 SSD plus a 2 terabyte hard disk drive. So that means you can install all your applications on the SSD drive, which means it's blisteringly fast to open applications and so on. And you can store your big content onto your normal spinning hard drive, which is where that kind of stuff needs to be stored. All right, so you need to choose between an all-in-one and a desktop computer. So with all-in-ones and desktop computers, if you're just doing light stuff, light graphical work, then integrated graphics is perfectly fine. You're only going to need a graphics card inside your desktop or all-in-one if you're going to be playing games and you want to run, you want to play more powerful games at the highest resolution, or you're doing things like video editing, which are quite taxing on the graphics system. So, and then you'd want to have a dedicated graphics card. Sweet, so that's the all-in-ones. Otherwise, we can go to desktop PC. So remember, with the desktop PC, you're going to need to buy a monitor as well. So that's an extra expense. So you'll need to factor that into your budget. Sweet, so let's go shop all desktop PCs and sort it by the lowest price. So these mini computers aren't really that good for doing a decent amount of work, but if you're just doing basic productivity stuff, then these are also good as well. All right, so they're kind of like, they do tasks that laptops do, but obviously they're not portable because there's no built-in screen with them. So we get to the true desktop computers. So starting to get some here. So again, just look at the memory size. Probably 8 gigabyte is a good minimum to start with. I wouldn't go for anything with 4 gigabytes because you want to be able to run lots of programs at the same time. You want to look at the SSD capacity. Bigger is better. And so integrated graphics is fine. You only need a graphics card if you're doing video editing and playing games and that kind of stuff. All right, let's have a look if there are any desktop computers that actually have a graphics card in it. So let's go down. These are all integrated graphics. So it's only once you start to get to more expensive desktop computers will you start to get computers with graphics cards in them, because they add cost to the actual. So here we go, we've got NVIDIA RTX 2060 for a graphics card. So this is a gaming PC, so generally only the gaming PCs will have it. So I'm not going to go into how do you know which graphics card is better than others, because if you're into gaming you will have found that out already, so most of you are not really interested in that. Alright, so that's how you'll go about deciding what desktop computer you want to go with. And remember, for a desktop computer you're going to need to buy a screen, or you can go with an all-in-one and it comes with the screen built in depending on what you want. Anyway, hopefully I hope you found this video useful for you. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't find it useful, you're welcome to give it a thumbs down if you wish. That's not a problem. If you have any comments or you have any questions you want to ask, then feel free to leave them in the comments section. Be love to see your comments. And that's the end of this particular series, but please subscribe, because I'll be adding more content to my tech channel, and you might find some more interesting things pop up later on as well. So please subscribe, and it also means the YouTube algorithm will notice my content a little bit more as well. Anyway, that's it for this video. Hopefully you found it useful, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next video.